Hello friends, welcome back to another video. 11 September 2001, a horrifying day that shook America to the core. A day that perhaps changed the world forever even after 20 years. The effect of this day can be seen in your daily life, you won't believe it. How this day can impact your life. Come, let's try to understand in this video.
Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack.
Oh my God.
In a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts.
Of the Pentagon.
The Pentagon has been evacuated and the White House is evacuated.
Now this is what it looked like moments ago.
This was the morning of 11 September 2001. American Airlines Flight 11 take off from Boston's International Airport. The destination of this flight was Los Angeles. Around 92 people were aboard in this plane, of whom 11 were crew members and 81 were passengers. About 15 minutes after the flight took off, it comes to be known that of 81 passengers, 5 were hijackers. These hijackers hijacked the plane by overpowering the passengers, forcing their way into the cockpit. One of them was Mohammed Atta. He was trained as a pilot. By nationality, he was an Egyptian and was 33 years old. He takes away the control of the plane from the pilot and the co-pilot. He flies the plane straight towards the World Trade Center. The World Trade Center was a monumental historical building in America. At one time, it is the tallest building in the world. It was the pride of New York. The hijacker crashed the plane into the North Tower of the World Trade Center.
What is that? Somebody hit the World Trade Center or the
Trade Center.
World Trade Center.
It's 8:52 here in New York. I'm Brian Gumble. We understand that there has been a plane crash on the southern tip of Manhattan. You're looking at the World Trade Center.
This crash took place in the morning at 8:46 a.m. The then president of USA, George Bush, was on the tour of Florida. While he was on the way, his White House chief of staff was informed of this crash. He told George Bush, but George Bush didn't believe it. He says that it's unbelievable that anyone could even do that. He says that surely the pilot would have suffered a heart attack. That's why the plane crashed into the building.
Sir, it appears a small twin-engine prop plane crashed into one of the towers at the World Trade Center in New York City. Our collective response was, oh, what a horrible accident. The pilot must have had a heart attack.
The only 17 minutes later, it comes to be known that the American Airlines Flight 175 also had been hijacked by 5 hijackers. Once again, the hijacker overpowered the pilots and take away the control of the plane. Because of 17 minutes after the first crash, these hijackers once again turned towards the World Trade Center and crashed the plane into the South Tower. The second crash into the second tower. By the time US President had reached at school and was in a classroom with the children of second grade, he was in the midst of the reading exercise named the Pet God. This time, the chief of staff Andrew Gate went into the classroom and whispered into his ears. He remains in the classroom in those minutes, ignoring all these. A few minutes after the second plane crash, the news of 2 more planes being hijacked comes in. One was the American Airlines Flight 77. It had taken off from Washington's International Airport. This flight was headed to Los Angeles and it was also carrying 5 hijackers. The second flight was United Flight 93. The flight was going to New Jersey from California. Apparently, it had 4 hijackers. Both hijackers were routed to Washington, D.C. Friends, Washington, D.C. is the capital of United States of America. On the outskirts of Washington, D.C., it is the headquarters of U.S. Department of Defense. It is called the Pentagon. The Pentagon is also an iconic building of U.S. Hijackers turned the Flight 77 towards this, and the Flight 77 was crashed into the Pentagon building.
Oh my goodness. We're looking at a live picture from Washington, and there is smoke pouring out of the Pentagon. It would appear that there has been another major explosion, this one in the nation's capital.
At this point in time, after the third crash, the entire airspace of United States was shut down. All the airplanes in the air were ordered to land at their nearest airports. The third crash into the Pentagon building took place at 9:37 a.m. Because of this, a significant portion of the Pentagon got destroyed. At 9:59 a.m., Due to the plane crash into the South Tower, the whole building caught on fire. Because of the fire and the crash, the structure of the building had weakened, and at this point, the entire building collapsed and the South Tower fell.
About 9:30 this morning, and this is the
Confirmed, at least
collapse.
for
We're
the
showing you, this
Associated
is the
Press.
collapse, ladies and gentlemen, on videotape. The collapse that just happened. Unbelievable.
During this time, everyone was scared of the fourth hijacked plane, United Airlines Flight 93. The fourth plane hijacked, people were scared about where the hijacker would crash the plane. It was suspected that the plane would be crashed into the White House or the US Capitol. The White House is a very important place for the United States because this is the residence of US President. The US President lives there, and the United States Capitol building is the legislative seat for the US federal government. So it was suspected that the target of the fourth plane would be entire White House or the Capitol Hill building. On the other hand, the people in this plane, some of them had turned on their phone when the plane was hijacked. They started getting phone calls from their family members. They told them about what was happening in America. They told them the three planes were crashed, World Trade Center was attacked, and that the World Trade Center had collapsed. Soon the passenger in the plane had realized what was happening. Their plane was also hijacked, and like the other hijacked plane were crashed, soon their plane could also be crashed. They didn't have many options. They could either sit back and watch the hijacker to crash that plane too, or they could be brave and fight the hijackers. These people showed courage and fight the hijacker. The common people sitting in the United Flight 93 started to fight back against the hijacker. There was an uproar in the plane. The next part of the story is not clear about what actually happened in the plane. There are audio recordings from the plane that even today you can listen to them, but we don't exactly know either the passenger fight back could actually reach the cockpit or not. Either they could overpower the hijacker or not. We don't know this. But we know that the passenger tried to fight back and eventually the plane crash landed in an empty field. Because of the bravery of the passengers, the lives of many people were saved. At 10:28 am, the North Tower of the World Trade Center collapsed as well. By the time this horrifying morning turned into noon for America, it is revealed that the total of more than 3,000 people had died across the accident, and the more than 6,000 people were injured. Several were killed in the Pentagon, and the several were killed in the World Trade Center. This is comes to know that the terrorist group Al-Qaeda were behind this attack. But a few days after 9/11 attack, Osama bin Laden released a statement saying that he is not responsible for it. He denies any responsibility. But in 2004 US elections, about 3 years after this incident, a public tape recording is published by Osama bin Laden, where he acknowledges the attack and takes responsibility for it. Osama justifies it by saying that there were several motivations of Al-Qaeda behind carrying out these attacks. The interference of the US in the Middle East, the US supporting Israel, supporting the action against the Muslim in Lebanon, supporting Russia in crimes against Muslim in Chechnya, the US collaboration with Saudi Arabia, sending its troops to Saudi Arabia. Osama lists down several reasons saying that was why he attacked America, that they were basically trying to teach lesson to America. The main conclusion of all the reason was that they were doing this because of the Muslim were abused. Remember this point, because in the next part of the story, there is an important lesson about this. The 9/11 Commission report named the Pakistani terrorist Khalid Sheikh Mohammed to be the principal architect of these attacks. This person was involved in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing as well. He, along with the 4 other accused people, were put in the Guantanamo Bay jail. He is still there undergoing trial. On the other hand, Osama bin Laden is finally killed in May 2011. But perhaps here it is very important to know that how did these attacks affect the lives of the common man? Here I am not talking about the American common man. I am talking about the common men around the world. You can't imagine the level of which these attacks have an impact. The only 6 weeks after the 9/11 attack, a Patriot Act was passed in the rush by US Congress. Several politicians who were present in the USA Parliament had not even read this bill. Neither was there a proper discussion nor were there any amendment. A Patriot Act was simply passed.
So here is a question. What was so special in this act? This act gave the US government boundless power. It gave the US government the authority to spy on its citizens. It could secretly access any book, record, paper, and documents. Additionally, they reduces the power of judiciary. And this act covered everyone. People pointed out how the government basically used the Patriot Act and used the terrorist threats as an excuse to silence its dissenters. The people speaking out in the opposition of the government, this act was used to silence them. About 12 years after 9/11, whistleblower Edward Snowden made a terrifying expose about this. The news spread worldwide about how the US government was carrying out surveillance, it was spying. The NSA was collecting the phone records of the customers daily, without any warrant, without any evidence, without informing people. The government could spy on anyone, so it did. Friends, after 9/11, another shocking change was in the airport security norms. You would be surprised to note that before 2001, in the most of the airports in the world, there was not much security checking. Sometimes, they checked the ID and the metal detector that you see while entering in the shopping mall. Security check was similar to that before boarding an airplane. You didn't even need to arrive long before boarding the flight. Arriving 15 to 30 minutes before was sufficient. After 9/11, everything was changed. Today, full body scan, mandatory personal ID check, passport check are done. Boarding passes are given. You are told to empty your pockets. When bags are checked, you need to place laptop and other devices outside. The quantity of liquid you can carry on the airplanes is also restricted. After December 2002, explosive detection systems were deployed nationwide, and later it was done in the rest of the world. In early 2003, pilots were given weapons to protect themselves for the first time. Cockpit doors were reinforced so that they could be protected against explosions, small firearms, and even grenades. For the attack, Osama used to excuse USA interference in the Middle East. After 9/11, this was even more prevalent. After 9/11, the USA invades Afghanistan to seek out these terrorist groups. We are still witnessing the story play out. The USA remains in Afghanistan for 20 years, though Osama bin Laden is killed. Trillions of US dollars of the USA taxpayers is wasted. Many of soldiers lost their lives. Additionally, the USA invades Iraq as well. Do you remember how Osama had said that because Muslims were being abused, he was taking revenge? After 9/11, the attacks on Muslims increased even more. A new wave of xenophobia against Muslims and the South Asian is seen. In 2001, 481 hate crimes took place against Muslims. Not only that, there are several hate crimes against Sikhs because many nationalities could not understand the difference between beard and the turbans of the Sikhs and the beard and the turbans of Osama bin Laden. Perhaps the first victim of such hate violence was Balbir Singh Sodhi. On September 15, he had donated money for the 9/11 victims. He was planting some flower outside his gas station in Arizona when he was killed. His killer Frank was arrested and he is still serving a life sentence. After this, some Sikh people had shaved their beard and stopped wearing turbans because of the security concern. The rise of the fear in the Americans after these attacks. Many people were arrested without any evidence and put into the jail. Human rights abuses were seen on the large scale and the Americans were in the favor of it. They supported it. They thought that the surveillance on them and the people that were being tortured, the innocent people being arrested, was all justified in fight against terrorism. Many critics claim that America's war on terror was synonymous with torture. Basically, what happened because of it was that more people were choosing the path of terrorism in anger or as revenge. Friends, in this whole story, I see very simple lesson. Extremism breeds extremism. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. Osama had said that he was taking revenge against what the USA had done by killing several innocent people. And once Osama had done that, the USA said it is taking revenge against Osama had done by invading Afghanistan and Iraq, killing many innocent people there. And the families of the people that are killed feel that because the USA had done that to them, they would take revenge by joining terrorist group. So this story of revenge for a revenge, this story will continue forever. This is an endless spiral. It has no end. When one terrorist is killed, it creates another. And today, you can see that the Osama bin Laden was killed and the organization ISIS had comes to the forefront. There is a second lesson for us as well. You should never let any government use an act of terrorism as an excuse to exploit us. The US government exploited the US citizens a lot after 9/11 through the surveillance and the Patriot Act. Never so be blinded by fear that you can stop seeing the reality.